Somebody else who's been kind of putting in a little bit of overtime, I think you can say, is Sam Darnold. Yeah. And before this, everyone is like, you know what? Yeah, I know he's having a good start to the season, but it's still just Sam Darnold. But these Vikings are atop the NFC North. He's had the season that I thought he could have. Play clean football, get the ball to Justin Jefferson. Check down when you have to. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of been what it's been for him. A little bit more than what I guess people would call a game manager, and a little bit more of a quarterback that I think you have to take more serious, especially when you compound this with, and I hate having to go back and refer to this, but it matters, the loss of Aidan Hutchinson and the fact that the Lions right now, they're standing pat. So we're going to see this team up against Sam Darnold and these red-hot Vikings, and they're going to have to find a way to slow them down. And the real question is, without Aidan Hutchinson, are they able to get pressure on Sam Darnold and make him look like the quarterback that we've seen in the past rather than this season?
Not to the shock of absolutely no one, I think it's going to be a struggle.
Oh.
And
a struggle?
A struggle for the Lions to get pressure on Sam Darnold in this game, given the circumstances. Okay. I'm not saying red alert that the Lions are necessarily going to lose. Let me give you my reasons. And last night, as after the show went on, I did a little reflection because I get it. There are a lot of times where I say things that are unpopular and people don't like it. And I'm cool with that. Yesterday, I said what I thought were very reasonable things. And the chat was like 90-10 against me. That I thought all I really said was, without Aidan Hutchinson, it's going to be a struggle. However, let me frame this a little bit differently, because I think I could have done a better job of articulating exactly what the Lions are actually up against and what they actually have and why. First off, the Vikings have two very good tackles. Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw are one of the better tackle duos in the NFL. If you want to go off of PFF, they're the only tackle duo that are two of the top 12 rated PFF tackles. And obviously, that's going to, Aidan Hutchinson not being there, that's going to be tough.
We got to be fair to that. Because trust me, I have a take, but we do got to be fair to that.
Absolutely. And I'm willing to listen to anybody. Yes, and so that's going to be tough, and you already don't have Marcus Davenport. You're really going to have to rely on pressure up the middle, which I think the Lions are capable of. You'd feel a lot better if you had really anyone, because of right now, and I'm not trying to pile on these guys, but I really want to paint a picture of who your edge rushers are right now. James Houston, who 75% of the fan base doesn't even like, who a lot of the fan base is victory lapping because they thought people like myself or like a Neil Rule or like a Spencer Raxter or even yourself, Kool-Aid or KG, were a little bit too high on. They're like, we knew he was a flash in the pan. We knew he sucked. I'm getting that from a lot of people. That's one of your pass rushers. Another one of your pass rushers was a practice squad cast-off, Isaiah Thomas. Not Detroit Pistons Isaiah Thomas, not even 5'9" Boston Celtics Isaiah Thomas.
Are they at least related?
I don't think so, because even those Isaiah Thomases would never be on a practice squad anywhere. But he's one of the guys that Brad Holmes signed, and you might have to rely upon him. You've got Levi Onwuzurike, who's more of a defensive tackle who can move around, but his natural position is defensive tackle. And you've got Josh Pascal, who has a grand total of 3 sacks in 27 games. That's, to me, as of right now on paper, in terms of healthy people, amongst the worst edge rushing rooms in the entire NFL. Not among contending teams in the entire NFL. And to me, I think where me and Chase got off on the wrong foot is I think we have a little bit of a philosophical difference. I believe that you believe that the Lions' infrastructure and everything is so strong that they can withstand things, that the talent maybe on the offense and then the secondary is so strong that they can withstand things. I personally believe that you can't withstand an Aidan Hutchinson injury and do nothing. He is arguably the defensive player of the year. I look back on past Super Bowl winning teams like the Kansas City Chiefs. Would the Chiefs have won the Super Bowl last year without Chris Jones? No. Would the Rams have won the Super Bowl in 2021 without Aaron Donald? No. Would the Patriots have won the Super Bowl in 2018 without Stephon Gilmore? No. Would the Broncos have won the Super Bowl in 2015 without Von Miller? No. Would the Seahawks have won the Super Bowl in 2013 without Richard Sherman? I believe no. I know they blew out the Broncos, but they had a really close call against the 49ers.
Malcolm Smith was the MVP of that Super Bowl.
But Chase, let me finish. In 2013, I don't believe they win the NFC Championship game without Richard Sherman. He made the play. He made the play by batting the ball away from a Crabtree and did the whole "I'm the best corner in the game" thing.
Sorry,
they also played a whole
Crabtree.
59 minutes before that too. That all factors into the rest of the game too.
I understand, but like Aidan Hutchinson is a big loss, and all of those teams that I mentioned, I think may have had more supplementary pieces than the Lions do right now.
None of those guys you just mentioned were the quarterback, and that's the most important person on the field.
Okay, that's fine, but do you agree that the Chiefs don't win the Super Bowl without Chris Jones last year?
I'm not going to say they're not going to win. I think, is it harder for them? Yeah, but we can't go back and just remove him from the team and then have him replay the season. Is it harder for the Lions this year? And I can talk about what I believe now.
Okay, go ahead.
I believe like this organization and this front office has proven to us as fans that they know what they're doing, and I'm willing to sit and watch a game or two before they make a decision and telling them what I think they need to do. That's what I'm willing to do.
And that's fair. And I'm not mad that they didn't make a move this week or anything like that. I'm willing to let it play out, at least until the trade deadline. My point is that I don't think there's a chance that it plays out positively. I don't think there's a chance that they win the Super Bowl if Aidan Hutchinson, if they don't replace him at least to some degree. And that's all that matters this season is a Super Bowl. Not making the playoffs, not winning a playoff game, a Super Bowl.
I do want to give a lot more credence, though, to Dan Campbell as a coach and the words that he's saying. We trust and we get hype about a lot of things that Dan says, and when he states we got enough internally, we got some schemes. So now he's not just talking about the players on the field, but now he's also talking about the coaching. And they invested in this coaching. We went all offseason talking about, hey, they brought in Terrell Williams. Hey, they upgraded this. Hey, they got rid of this coach because they're trying to win a Super Bowl right now. And if any team, when you're talking about building for longevity, I have to believe that Brad Holmes has contingencies for if you lose a player that is of vital importance. Yeah. And I get what you're saying, Chase, to a degree. But for the exercises of today, it is about Lions-Vikings, not Lions 2 weeks from now, Lions at the trade deadline. It's what are the Lions doing today or Sunday to get a victory, to overcome the loss of Aidan Hutchinson. Shout out to Cody Ingle, who says, so do you think AG can scheme up ways to help, or are we just screwed? I think it is a combination of AG, Terrell Williams, because we saw the improvements of Aidan Hutchinson. We give him a lot of credit, but I do believe Terrell Williams helps with his technique as well as others who are having some success this season on that defensive line. But I also think you couple that with what KG was saying yesterday, the interior of the defensive line. Can it be what we knew? If Aidan Hutchinson's on the edge, that's going to help the interior. Now that you lose Aidan Hutchinson, you need your big paid men in the middle of the field to kind of take on that mindset as well. Can we be so disruptive that we help these edges and we help whatever scheme that AG is bringing to the table so that these guys can get home too? Be as disruptive, be as powerful, because I have to think, I don't know what the contract details, when it was going on, but when you're signing that contract after the Aidan Hutchinson news, I do believe that Aleem McNeil's mind goes to a completely different place. What pushes you to that next level? Sometimes it is adversity. And this is what I do believe this team is built to do. Win despite the adversity. I got a lot of faith in the interior. I got a lot of faith in the secondary. I got a lot of faith in the schemes that they can come up with.
And I hear you on that. Not to say that you're wrong. I do believe in this defense and what AG has cooking. But we keep saying it's Aidan. You know, it's Aidan, which it is. He's the most important player on this defense. But it's more than just Aidan. We've lost Marcus Davenport as well. We've lost Kyle Pecco, last week. We lost John Kaminsky before the season even started. That's two of your starters and two of your key subs. So they are down bodies right now. And you can't just get a pass rush with the front four as presently constructed. You have to come up with different ways to get pressure, whether that be blitzing linebackers or safeties, which is going to leave your secondary a little bit more vulnerable than you would like them to be, especially with how well they've played so far, and the whole deal with Terrion getting flagged so much. So not to say that they can't, but they are looking like a long-term problem in the face. So I would urge them to make a move. Of course, they can figure out things for the Minnesota Vikings game. They really have no choice. But going, forward, you're down a lot of bodies, though, and eventually will show. Yes. Eventually, that'll show.
No, going forward, yeah. That's why I'm like, let's frame it in a little bit more, because I think everybody is already, we've said this all week, they got to get somebody for a Super Bowl. But we're talking about the Vikings right now. They're not the Super Bowl. They're not. They're your NFC North opponent who we said they're going to wash this season. That's what we stated. You lost Aidan Hutchinson. You got a little bit of adversity. Yeah, I know you lost some bodies. But for this game right now, I don't know. The same feeling that I got as we approached the Dallas Cowboys game is the same one I got here, because I'm starting to remember and to realize who our team is and who these coaches are. And I do believe that matters for at least this one particular game, where these guys have to bottle up everything and do exactly what they were saying right after the game. This is for Hutch. This is for Hutch. I do believe we have some guys that you can coach up, and I think we got the coaches to be able to do that. When you compare, and shout out Weezy D313, the interior OL from a pass rushing standpoint and our cornerbacks and coverage is 10 times better than last year.
That's a fact.
Losing Hutch is huge. But we did see this defense last year. Come up with some opportunistic stops. We saw how they played within the 20s and who they were in the red zone as well. I do believe that the Lions can still employ that type of defense. And I just continue to banter about, are they a better defense this year, even without Aidan Hutchinson, than they were last year, or are they just not? The secondary, I don't know. I don't know how you parse that. But I do believe that Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch are better than they were last year. 100%. I do believe that this secondary is better than it was last year. I do believe that the linebackers are better than they were last year. So that's what I'm saying. The only question that we're talking about is the defensive line, but we got an Aleem McNeil who's on like contract bump steroids right now.
That's fair. And I hope to God that I'm wrong. I hope to God that I come in next Monday and Tuesday and Chase is like, see, I told you they'd be fine. Seriously, I do. Because we'd all be celebrating a win. My thing, and maybe I got a little off topic talking about the Super Bowl, but here's how I will land the plane and relate it all. I have a lot of fears going up against the Minnesota Vikings with the pass rush as currently constructed, given what the Vikings have in terms of the tackle position. I have some worries. Like I said, Josh Paschal, when I mention him, some people get mad, but that's why I had to say this man has 3 career sacks in 27 games. Isaiah Thomas was on a practice squad. 75% of the fan base doesn't want James Houston on the team in victory laps against him constantly. And then you've got Levi O, who you'd rather have moving around, not as somebody you need as your number one pass rusher against the edge. And to me, and maybe people won't like this, but I'm looking at this logically, I do think the Lions are vulnerable without Aidan Hutchinson against the Vikings. Not saying they'll lose, but I think they're vulnerable. And I think if the Lions lose this game, you got to start worrying about, do they even make the playoffs? By the numbers. 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 Logically, I know that they're a good enough football team to do so. I'm talking about they'd be effectively 2.5 out of first. I'm talking about a Bears who are 4-2 and a Packers who are 4-2. It's not like last year where the division was, for all intents and purposes, over pretty much after week 4. I still think they would make the playoffs, but this is a big, big game, and I think the Lions are potentially vulnerable. I hope I'm wrong. I'm just not going to be a snake oil salesman.
They're not potentially vulnerable. They are vulnerable right now. And so it's like, you pay your respects to the opponent. You got to pay your respects for Aidan Hutchinson. Because as I saw in the chat, I forgot who said it, we're delusional if we believe, I don't know where it is, if you don't believe that losing Hutchinson is going to make a difference. The problem is this, though. On the flip side, okay, is AG the guy that the league is saying, is AG, because think about it, if you're a defensive coordinator worth your weight in salt, don't you have to be able to find a way to get around things like this?
Absolutely. All the good teams do.
Who is he? Because that's what I'm talking about. Who is he? You're telling me these guys are not in the lab since this thing has happened, trying to scheme up. These are the best coaches at their positions. I'm going to let that count for something. I am. I'm not saying not to be worried about what the offense can do, because we saw the offense last year with the worst quarterback of the Vikings put up numbers. And those games weren't just absolute blowouts. We didn't just dog them. Those were some battles, and we had to rely on some multiple interceptions to put it in our favor. So I do understand what you're saying. I just feel like the makeup of this team overall this year is just better than it was last year. And I do think that this year, AG still has a few more toys to play with. And some of those players we liked last year, they took some steps up.
Well, and this is where I want to relate this week to potentially a Super Bowl run, because I don't think there's anything that the Lions could or should do this week that should dissuade Brad Holmes from continuing to make the phone calls, which he is doing, and inquiring about different potential edge rusher replacements, because you can potentially beat the Vikings without Aidan Hutchinson. And I'm not even saying that the Lions are going to lose. I'm just saying that it's going to be a lot harder. But the problem is, the reason why I compared it to all of those defenses on teams that have won Super Bowls in the past or have had good teams is that like Chris Jones played, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, and Von Miller played. You look at even like 2019, Shaq Barrett and Devin White and Levante David, they played. You look at 2018, Stephon Gilmore played. Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware played. They weren't out. Aidan Hutchinson is right on those guys' level in terms of potential defensive player of the year type players. You don't just lose one of those and don't replace them and ultimately reach the same goals that you had before the year. I'm not saying that Brad Holmes won't replace Aidan Hutchinson. I actually do think he'll continue to make the calls. I do think he'll get a deal done. It's just, I think they're vulnerable against the Vikings, but even if you do see a semblance of a pass rush, I don't think that should dissuade Brad Holmes from being like, we need somebody who can somewhat replace Aidan Hutchinson's production if they're going to win the Super Bowl.
They know that.
I 100% agree with that. 100%. I hope nobody in here disagrees with that.